He was just a janitor, invisible to most people in the building. But that night, when the CEO whispered, "Pretend you kiss me for 10 minutes, everything around him froze. Time, logic, and the line between two worlds that were never meant to touch. None of them knew that one desperate act would change both of their lives forever. Dash dash dash. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the vast marble lobby of Whitestone Industries. It was nearly midnight, and the building, usually bustling with executives in polished shoes and interns clutching coffee, was silent except for the rhythmic squeak of a mop. Ethan Cole moved carefully, his broad shoulders hunched slightly under the weight of exhaustion. He had just finished the top floors and was heading down to the executive level, the floor where no one ever noticed him unless they needed something cleaned right now. His reflection rippled faintly on the floor's perfect sheen. He had always taken pride in his work. Maybe it wasn't the dream he'd once had, but it was honest. And it kept food on the table for his son, Noah. Noah. His whole world. A 6-year-old with the same curious green eyes as his late mother. Every night before work, Ethan tucked him into bed, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Someday, buddy, Daddy's gonna build you the biggest rocket." Ethan had once been an engineer. He'd worked on design teams that built real prototypes for aerospace firms. He'd had ideas, ambition, and a wife who believed in him. Until the accident. Until the day everything fell apart. The day Laura died giving birth to Noah. He had tried to keep his career alive, but grief was a heavy anchor. He missed deadlines, lost focus, and eventually, his position. Bills piled up, and suddenly he was a single father without a degree that mattered anymore. So, when the janitor job opened up, he took it. Not out of pride, but out of love. He was mopping the marble floor when the elevator chimed. Ethan frowned. It was past 11:30 p.m. No one worked this late except maybe the security guards or... The elevator doors slid open, and out stepped Amelia Hart, CEO of Whitestone Industries. She was everything people whispered about. Elegant, untouchable, with the kind of beauty that made people look twice but never dare approach. Her black heels clicked sharply against the tiles, the echo slicing through the silence. Ethan froze. He'd seen her from afar countless times, in board meetings he cleaned after, on magazine covers in the break room. But seeing her up close was something else entirely. She looked different, not cold and confident as usual, but almost frightened. Her gaze darted over her shoulder, then around the hall, until it landed on him. "Did you see anyone come through here?" she asked, her voice low, urgent. Ethan shook his head. "No, ma'am, just me." She hesitated. Her breathing was shallow. Then she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Listen, I need your help." The words startled him. No CEO had ever spoken those to him before. Before he could respond, the sound of distant voices echoed down the hall. Men's voices, deep, confident, and closing in. Amelia's eyes widened. She reached out and grabbed his sleeve, pulling him behind one of the marble columns. Her touch was desperate, trembling. "Please," she whispered, pressing her back against the wall, "you can't let them see me." Ethan blinked, confused but alert. "Who are they?" "Reporters, from Horizon Tech's media branch. They've been following me for weeks, trying to create a scandal." Her words came fast, breathless. "They're trying to trap me, to make it look like I'm having an affair. If they get pictures of me here tonight, everything I've built will crumble." She peeked around the corner, then turned back to him. "They're almost here." Ethan's heart pounded. "What do you want me to do?" She met his eyes, and in that moment, she wasn't a CEO, or a legend in a business suit. She was a terrified woman with no one else to trust. "Pretend to kiss me," she said softly. He blinked. "What? Pretend you're my lover," she whispered, her hands trembling. "Just for a few minutes. 10 minutes, maybe less. If they see me with someone like you, they'll stop following. They'll think they've already gotten what they came for." Ethan's mind spun. He wanted to protest. To say he couldn't, that it was crazy, that she'd regret this, but something in her voice, in her eyes, stopped him. "Please," she said again, barely audible. "I don't have anyone else." And before he could talk himself out of it, he nodded. "Okay." She exhaled, relief flashing across her face. Then, without warning, she stepped closer. Her perfume, Faint jasmine mixed with something clean and sharp, filled his senses. Her hands rose, hesitated for a moment in the air, and then rested lightly against his chest. Ethan felt her fingers tremble. He swallowed hard. Slowly, almost respectfully, he placed his rough hand at her waist, the other gently lifting to her jaw. And then, as the shadows of the approaching men grew longer, she leaned in. Their lips met. At first, it was mechanical, awkward, almost unsure. But the second her breath hitched, the second his heart caught up to his brain, something shifted. The air thickened. Time slowed. The world blurred into silence. He could feel her heartbeat racing, matching his. He could sense the fear leaving her body, replaced by something neither of them could name. The footsteps stopped. Murmured voices drifted closer, then away. The men were buying it. For 10 long minutes, they stood there, pressed close, breathing the same air, pretending to be something neither of them understood. And yet, somewhere deep down, it didn't feel like pretending anymore. When the hallway finally went quiet, Amelia slowly pulled back. Her lips were parted slightly, her eyes still dazed. For a brief second, they just stared at each other, two people from different worlds, caught in a moment that shouldn't have existed. Then she blinked, breaking the spell. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan stepped back, clearing his throat. "You're welcome, ma'am." The "ma'am" made her smile faintly, a small, real smile that softened her sharp features. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ethan. Ethan Cole." "Well, Ethan Cole," she said, regaining her composure, "you just saved me from a scandal that could have ended my career." He shrugged, half awkward. "Just doing my job." She tilted her head slightly. "That's not in your job description." He chuckled softly. "Guess I'm full of surprises." For the first time, she looked at him like she saw more than a uniform. Like she saw the man behind the mop. Tired eyes, calloused hands, but a calm that somehow steadied her. Her gaze lingered, just a moment too long. Then, with that same professional grace, she turned toward the elevator. "Good night, Mr. Cole." The doors closed behind her, leaving Ethan in the empty hall, his pulse still unsteady. He stared at the marble floor, the same one he'd been cleaning moments ago, and tried to understand what had just happened. Somewhere on the security cameras, two people who should never have met had shared something that felt almost real. And Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of it. When he got home at dawn, Noah was still asleep, hugging his stuffed rocket. Ethan sat at the edge of the bed, brushing his son's hair gently aside. He smiled softly. "Hey, buddy, you'll never believe what happened at work tonight." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it himself. The next morning, when he arrived at work, the whispers started. The cleaning staff looked at him differently, curious, uncertain. Two of the office secretaries stopped talking when he passed. It wasn't until he saw the headlines on someone's phone that he understood why. Mysterious man seen with Whitestone CEO late at night. Scandal or secret romance. Amelia Hart's midnight companion identified. Ethan froze. The photos were blurry, just silhouettes under dim hallway lights, but anyone who knew him could tell. His stomach twisted. He wasn't supposed to be noticed. He wasn't supposed to be seen. Before panic could set in, his phone buzzed with a message. Unknown number. "Meet me in my office. AH. His heart pounded. He made his way to the top floor, the place where no janitor ever set foot unless summoned. The secretary nodded him in wordlessly. Amelia stood by the window, sunlight cutting across her figure. She turned as he entered, her expression unreadable. "They think I'm seeing someone," she said simply. "I saw," he replied. Her eyes searched his face. "They want a name. The board's already asking questions." He nodded slowly. "I'll quit. That'll make it easier for you." But she shook her head. "No." Her voice softened, the ice melting again. "You didn't do anything wrong, Ethan. I won't let them make you the villain for helping me." He looked at her, the woman who had once seemed untouchable, and saw something he hadn't expected: integrity. "Gratitude. Thank you," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "I think I'm the one who should be saying that." Outside, the city pulsed with rumors, stories, noise. But inside that office, something fragile but undeniable began to take root. Neither of them knew it yet, but that single night, that 10-minute kiss born out of desperation, had already changed everything. When the janitor walked into the ballroom holding the CEO's hand, every conversation stopped. Cameras flashed, glasses froze mid-air, and hundreds of eyes turned toward them. No one could believe what they were seeing. The woman known as the Ice Queen, standing proudly beside the man who used to mop her floors. But what happened next would silence an entire city. The chandeliers of the Meridian Grand glowed like constellations. Gold light poured over the sea of tuxedos and designer gowns, the air thick with champagne, power, and whispered judgment. It was the annual Whitestone Gala, the company's most prestigious event, and every major investor, journalist, and executive in the city was there. The tension began the moment Amelia Hart walked through the door. Her usual confidence was there, but something about her was different, softer, calmer, almost defiant. Beside her walked Ethan Cole, dressed in a simple black suit that didn't quite fit his broad frame but somehow made him stand out even more. Their hands were intertwined. It was supposed to be just another business event, a night to announce Whitestone's new partnership, but as soon as Amelia entered with Ethan, the air changed. Conversations stuttered. Forks clinked nervously against glasses. A few gasps broke through the murmur. Ethan could feel every stare burning into him. Board members, media figures, men in tailored suits whispering behind their glasses of wine. He'd never been in a room like this before. His palms were damp, his throat dry. Every instinct screamed that he didn't belong. But Amelia's hand tightened around his. "Breathe," she murmured, glancing up at him. "You're doing fine." He managed a shaky smile. "I still don't know why I'm here." Her lips curved slightly. "Because you deserve to be." He didn't understand what she meant. "Not yet." A journalist's voice cut through the chatter. "Ms. Hart, is it true? Are you dating your janitor?" Dozens of cameras turned toward her, flashes blinding. Amelia didn't flinch. She simply turned her head, her calm gaze finding the reporters. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. The room erupted. Reporters surged forward. Board members exchanged horrified looks. One investor actually dropped his glass. Ethan's heart leapt to his throat. But Amelia stood firm, her shoulders squared. "Yes," she repeated, "I am." A wave of disbelief swept through the hall. Some people whispered, others laughed under their breath, but Amelia didn't seem to care. She led Ethan to the stage as though it had all been rehearsed. The MC stammered something into the microphone, clearly thrown off, before stepping aside. Amelia took his place, her posture poised, eyes scanning the stunned crowd. "Good evening," she began, her voice carrying through the hall. "Before we begin tonight's presentation, I'd like to address the rumors that have filled your news feeds, your group chats, and your whispers over the past few weeks." Silence. "Yes," she said again, glancing toward Ethan. "The man standing beside me is Ethan Cole. He's a janitor in this building, and he's the man in those photos. I won't deny it." Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. He wanted to step back, to vanish into the shadows where he belonged. But something in Amelia's eyes, pride, perhaps, anchored him there. She continued, "You all know me as the CEO who rebuilt Whitestone after my father's bankruptcy. You've seen the headlines that call me cold, ruthless, untouchable. But what you don't know is that success comes at a cost. It isolates you. It hardens you. You start believing that kindness makes you weak." Her voice softened. "Until someone proves you wrong." The crowd was motionless now. Even the waiters had stopped moving. She turned slightly toward Ethan. "One night, when I was being followed, cornered, and manipulated by people trying to destroy me, Ethan didn't hesitate to help, even though I was a stranger, even though helping me could have cost him his job. He didn't do it for attention or money. He did it because it was right." She faced the audience again, her tone stronger now. "You call it scandal. I call it humanity. And if that's something to be ashamed of, then maybe our world needs more scandal." The room stayed silent for several seconds that felt eternal. Then, slowly, one person began to clap. Then another. Within moments, the hall filled with applause. Not everyone joined in. Some still glared, lips tight with judgment, but the sound of genuine respect echoed louder than the whispers. Ethan stood frozen, stunned. He'd never been defended before. Never been seen like this. When the applause finally died down, Amelia stepped away from the podium. Cameras still flashed, but now the questions were different. Not about scandal, about courage. As she led him down the steps, Ethan whispered, "You didn't have to do that." She smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but I wanted to." Outside, the night air was cool and quiet. The city glittered below them as they stepped out onto the terrace. For the first time in a long while, Amelia exhaled, not like a CEO after a victory, but like a woman who'd finally stopped pretending. "Why me?" Ethan asked quietly. "You could have denied it. You could have said I was no one." Amelia turned to face him, her eyes luminous under the city lights. "Because you were someone when no one else was. You didn't treat me like a symbol, or a headline. You treated me like a person. I won't erase that just to keep my reputation clean." He looked down at his hands, rough, scarred, worn from years of work, then at her manicured ones resting calmly by her side. "We come from different worlds, Amelia." She smiled. "Maybe, but maybe that's what makes it real." They stood in silence for a long moment, the city's hum filling the space between them. Then she said softly, "I want to know you, Ethan. Not as an employee, as you." He hesitated, his heart torn between disbelief and hope. "And what about the world? They'll never let you forget this." Her gaze didn't waver. "Then let them talk. For once, I'm not living for them." The weeks that followed weren't easy. The tabloids spun stories, the internet exploded with opinions. Ethan received hateful messages, mocking comments from strangers who thought they knew everything about him. At Noah's school, some parents whispered when he arrived. He thought about quitting every day, about sparing her the chaos. But every night, she called. Sometimes just to talk, sometimes to listen. They began meeting outside of work, at small cafes, at quiet parks, sometimes even at Ethan's modest apartment, where Noah would proudly show her his rocket drawings. The first night she came over, Noah had run to the door, eyes wide. "Are you my dad's boss?" he asked innocently. Amelia smiled, kneeling to his height. "I was. But tonight, I'm your friend." They spent the evening building Legos and laughing, a sound Ethan hadn't heard in his home since Laura died. For the first time in years, his apartment felt alive again. When Noah finally fell asleep, Ethan looked at her across the couch, the flicker of the lamp softening her face. "You're really not what people say you are." She tilted her head. "Neither are you." And somehow, those words changed everything. Months passed. The media frenzy faded as a new scandal took its place. Whitestone's board, once furious, now quietly admired how Amelia had turned controversy into authenticity. The company's value soared. Investors called her speech bold branding, but Ethan knew the truth. It wasn't strategy. It was her heart finally speaking aloud. One evening, after work, Amelia invited him to the rooftop of the building where it had all begun. The night was still, the city stretching endlessly below. "Do you remember that night?" she asked softly. "When I told you to pretend?" He nodded, smiling faintly. "Hard to forget." She stepped closer, her heels clicking lightly on the concrete. "You said yes without hesitation. You didn't know me, but you trusted me." "I never forgot that. Anyone would have helped," he said quietly. Her eyes met his. "No, Ethan, not anyone." A soft breeze stirred her hair. She took a slow breath, her voice trembling slightly. "That night, I asked you to pretend to kiss me for 10 minutes. But it's been months, and I can't stop thinking about it." Ethan's breath caught. She smiled. Not the CEO's practiced smile, but something fragile, human. "So this time, I don't want you to pretend." And before he could answer, she leaned forward, her hands finding his chest once more, just as they had that night. Only this time, there were no shadows, no fear, no cameras. Just the quiet hum of the city and two people who'd finally stopped running. Their lips met again, and for the first time, it wasn't part of anyone's plan. It was real. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "For the record, that was longer than 10 minutes." He laughed softly. "Good. I was hoping it would be." They stood there together, the janitor and the CEO, not as symbols of scandal but as proof that love doesn't care about status, only truth. The next morning, Ethan walked his son to school, his hand warm in Noah's. "Dad," Noah said suddenly, Is Miss Amelia your girlfriend? Ethan chuckled. Something like that. Noah grinned. Good. You smile more now. And as Ethan watched his boy run ahead under the morning sun, he realized that maybe love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone who saw you when the world refused to look. Sometimes love doesn't enter through grand doors. It slips quietly into your life when you're busy cleaning the floors. What began as a 10-minute act of courage became a lifetime of truth. Because when kindness meets courage, it writes a story no rumor can erase.